Good morning.
Morning.
So, on behalf of IESE and the Institute for Sustainability Leadership, let me welcome you to IESE. I am Fabrizio Ferraro. I'm a professor of strategic management and academic director of this institute. Today, we have a guest speaker. A great opportunity to learn from someone who has been, leading sustainability in both corporate and now in the private equity world. But before we get there, let me just say, why do we think it's important to talk about sustainability today? We started 2 years ago with this institute with the idea of connecting research and reflection with companies so that we can have concrete actions on sustainability. And 2 years after, we believe this mission is more important than ever. And I think you probably can relate to the fact that there is, of course, growing resistance and a lot of confusion and noise about sustainability in the world today. And I think it's important to basically listen to that, understand how much of it is real, how much of it is noise, go back to the science, both natural science and social science, to see how it matters. But I think it's also important to understand how this is normal. And I always think about Albert Ishman ideas, one of the greatest economists of last century, on the rhetoric of reaction. He basically went through history and he shows that reaction to progress always follow three typical rhetorical templates: perversity, futility, and jeopardy. And he shows that in a variety of historical cases. Every time there are attempts to change things, there is a natural reaction. The perversity thesis is basically the idea that by trying to do good, you're going to make things worse. You hear this a lot today. And this was already raised when in England in the 19th century, they started the so-called poor laws. And they were criticizing them, saying, okay, if we do anything for the poor, they're just going to become poorer. You can fast forward today, you hear many things along the same line. The futility thesis is about change is pointless. No matter how much you try to change things, you always go back to the natural states. And this was actually the main argument against universal suffrage, the idea that we should all vote, and democracy. Two leading Italian, unfortunately, sociologists, Pareto and Mosca, were very, very vocal in saying this idea of democracy, that people vote, is not going to get nowhere. The same few people will have power anyway. And finally, jeopardy. Jeopardy is basically the idea that by progressing in some areas, we might lose some important conquests of the past. We hear that a lot today. And this was also something that was raised against democracy and against giving votes to women and slavery, because we're going to lose hard-won liberties and definitely property will be affected. So we hear a lot of the same criticism today around sustainability, and I think it's important to accept the fact that most of it, a lot of it is rhetorical. It follows the same template, it's expected, but that doesn't mean that we should necessarily buy into all of that. It just means that we need to understand how to counter this rhetoric and make sure that together we can make steps in the right direction. So this is why we believe this institute and all the work that many colleagues and staff, and of course many of our students and alumni are doing, is very important. So this is why we think we need to look forward with optimism, but at the same time kind of make sure that we are not following prey of the easy, simple, facile rhetoric of reaction, which are now in vogue. We shouldn't deny that. And we need to think about what is the best way to move forward. We've done a few things, so let's see what we've done with the Institute before we move to Emmanuel. I'll leave it to Fernanda Corsi, who's the Executive Director, to tell us a bit more about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Well, speaking after Fabrizio is a challenge always, but I'll try my best. First of all, dear friends, our friends, thank you very much to be here today. I imagine how busy you all are, so it really means a lot to all of us. I am very fortunate to wake up every day and know that I'm building this alongside each one of you. So thank you very much, it means a lot. I would like to thank our CSOs, our founding members, but our CSOs especially, for being with us every day, teaching us, for being in the forefront of the Institute with us, helping us to write this chapter. And I thank each one of us, each one of you, for knocking on our doors, for challenging us, for asking questions. So please continue. We want you to keep doing that. 2 years ago, when we were launching the Institute, I said that it takes a village, a community, to raise a child. And the same we can apply when we're creating something new, when we're thinking differently, when we're just going beyond our own doors. And this remains the same. And if you ask me, Fernanda, are we there yet? It depends. If we consider there as just a final destination, as that flag on top of a summit, or with an arrival sign saying, welcome, you're here, I'll say perhaps not. But if you tell me, no, it's about the journey, it's about the progress we're making, it's about having courage, it's about changing the route, resetting the GPS, then I'll say, yes, you know what? We're there. And every step we take, every challenge we're embracing, every new direction that we are exploring, it's moving us towards this sustainable future. I prefer to use the present, but sustainable future that we're building together, but you're building in the present moment. I am positive that we've made progress internally speaking IESE, but I'm also convinced that we encouraged or incentivized external action as well through each one of you as our main stakeholders. Our ecosystem, our institute is now functioning, is live, functioning, pulsing, and we want this to continue. We want to keep nurturing this with each one of you. Speaking a little bit about what we've done so far, in very short lines, we started with 8 founding members, and we're now 11. Our learning experience and our research work has evolved as well. Not only talking about academic research that we're working hard to give some more visibility, to translate into business language and eventually into business practices beyond the speech, but we've been refreshing cases, technical notes. We've been connecting students more and more through summer internships, through programs such as ISL Fellows, connecting companies, connecting professors, connecting students, so we can exchange this knowledge, promote this knowledge exchange. I'm being very specific here with the event 17th, but I'm pretty sure we did more than that. It's just because we really have an Excel sheet where we have our events. So we've done more than 17 events, CSO circles, what I call major summit or global events, partner events as well with Norskin, with Sheet2B Foundation, and so many other partners that we have. So we've been producing, co-producing, promoting, and they're all equally important to all of us. And for most of them, you're going to be invited, or you were invited as well, and you're present there with us. And we are nurturing and helping, supporting the growth and impact of some particular alliances, one of them Business School for Climate Leadership, Future of Capitalism, Network for Business Sustainability, among others. But with this, we can say that we're really advancing conversations together and action together beyond research. And none of these would have been possible without all of them. So it's a shout out to all our faculty that is bringing knowledge, it's bringing expertise, and it's bringing this rigor in what they're doing, and they're connecting, they're supporting, they're plugging in, they're making time to all of you as well when you come with your demands, when you come with your ideas, which is what we are encouraging you to continue doing it. So thank you very much to all of these and to the ones that are about to join us as well. So I'm very happy that some of them are here in this room, because that's the idea, to be evolving it, right? So when I said it takes a community to raise a child, and that everyone needs to be responsible for that, needs to take action for that. That's a little bit what Andrea Hoffman's saying here, because when we're part of a community, that kind of sets a highest bar for that particular kind of responsibility, right? For each one of us. And when someone is braver than you don't want to be the one that it's not brave. So that's going to push you as well. So that's what we want to do. We want to encourage that type of behavior. Our team has grown, and we're happy. We have also Andrea Bortolotti in this room with us. We have Maxime. 2 research assistants are also helping us here together with Fabrizio and I. But each one of you, I mean, if I knew your faces in advance and I could add all of your faces in a slide, you would all be here, because you're all part of what we're doing and what we're building. Without you, there's no ISL. It's your ecosystem. And that's why we ask, what do you want to do with it, really? Sustainability does not need to be a buzzword, really. We should own it, really, with every little choice we make every day. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this session, which we are not the protagonists today. And I welcome Emmanuel Lagarrigue here, and thank you very much for being here with us. Now we celebrate and we toast as well for these moments. Thank you.
Emmanuel will tell us much more about this experience. So I will just introduce him as the co-head of the climate at KKR. KKR was the first private equity firm and is currently the second largest in the world, with several billions. I don't know now how many billions under management, but a lot.
723.
So getting closer to $1 trillion. So an interesting thing, of course, being KKR based in New York, there's still a position called climate, which is interesting because you could expect otherwise. So, of course, before that, he was in Schneider as a Chief Strategy, Innovation, and Sustainability Officer at different points in time. And we believe it's a great example of how someone has been leading not only thinking but action on sustainability across both corporate and now the investing world. And we asked him to share his experience with us. Thank you so much, Emmanuel.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well? Yeah. So what we agreed with Fabrizio and Fernanda is that, well, I would just share a few words at the opening, but then feel free to ask any question. And if you don't have question, I'm sure Fabrizio and Fernanda will ask them anyway. So that's great to be here. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Well, on the personal side, I'm half Catalan, half French. I grew up in Paris, but actually most of the roots of my family are in Vic, and I always had family on both sides of the Pyrenees. I've lived and or worked in 15 countries. I think that was an enjoyable ride, and I loved every moment. And in many cases, people ask me, "Oh, what was your favorite country?" I don't know how to answer that question. Usually the last one. So now I live in New York. I enjoyed New York, but also enjoyed living in Barcelona, living in Hong Kong, living in Buenos Aires, and many other places. What was as you progress in life and in your career, is you realize that there are few things that are really important. So meeting people, sharing a number of values. I realized the values of this place, which I was not realizing really when I was younger and studying here. I realized the value of this place are probably stronger than you can imagine. Married, 2 daughters, 17 and 21. One is off to college, the other one is going to college next summer. So I'm very happy to have a dog, because at least someone comes and greets me when I go back home from my travels. As I said, I live in New York City, but I spend a lot of time traveling for my current job, and I was traveling already for Schneider Electric a lot. I spent the first 25 years of my career at Schneider Electric. 15 years as an operator, running P&Ls a bit everywhere on the planet, in several places in Europe, in South America, in Asia, in the US, and the last 10 years as a member of the executive committee, the management board, as they say in the Germanic world. So in charge of strategy, M&A, innovation, and sustainability. At different times, or sometimes all together, sometimes changing the things. So that's also something that in your career, especially if you work for a very large organization, you're not what's in your title, right? So you're what you deliver and who you are as a person. So it's normal that in organizations, especially in corporate functions, that functions and titles evolve and perimeters evolve as you progress in life. Actually, there is one lesson. This is something that the founders of KKR repeat a lot, and I like it. If you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less, right? So that's something that I think is well expressed, and it's, for me, it's my curiosity, my natural curiosity is probably what led me to work and live in so many countries, but also to shape sometimes my own perimeter, and sometimes even to say, no, I don't need to drive this anymore. Someone else in the team can do it, or vice versa. So when I took over as a chief strategy and sustainability officer of Schneider Electric, it was 10 years ago, in 2015. That was the time of the Paris Agreement, COP21. Schneider Electric was and still is the largest supplier of electrification infrastructure. So circuit breakers, power equipment, racks and cooling systems for data centers. All the things you see in the background here to manage the light, the power, the temperature in this building is Schneider Electric. So starting from that point, the problem though is that 10 years ago, I remember I just started this, and I had my first meeting with the board of the company. I was like, hey guys, you're not growing organically. And it's true, the entire category, all the companies in diversified industrial, Siemens, ABB, GE, everybody was still 5 years after the global, a bit more, 7 years after the global financial crisis, there was no organic growth in that sector. And boards were becoming impatient. And you could see activists looming around. GE was getting an activist. UTC, United Technologies, the owners of Carrier and Otis and a bunch of aerospace, were getting an activist. So it was a tense situation. So my first meeting with the board was like, guys, what's your plan for growth? So I had to come up very quickly with a new strategy. And the new strategy was basically to make of sustainability a business. And because we started realizing that if the CSO was just that person in the corner that was just filling forms or trying to push change, but without really having the levers of a business, that was not going to work. And of course, starting from the strength. So we were the largest supplier of power equipment. We were not going to double down on sustainability for, I don't know, waste management or water. That would not have been natural. But starting to talk about energy efficiency, starting to talk about how you create a flow of renewable energy for your customers, starting to figure out how you help them improve their processes and the way they use or manage energy was probably a good idea. So we started to create that business, which Raquel now runs through a number of acquisitions, and now it's a real business. It's I don't know if we can disclose the That's several hundred million of revenue globally, much more than this, growing very fast, very profitable. So sustainability for us had to be much more than just the nice sustainability advocate in a corner that was basically be the change agent and not to call it or her the pain in the butt for the others, but really be a driver of growth and value generation for the shareholders. And I think we made it. So of course, Schneider Electric is still the largest supplier of power equipment and automation systems. So today, if you look at the supply of this type of things, so Schneider is the equivalent of ABB, Siemens, GE, and a few more combined, right? So it's the largest customers of Schneider are Microsoft, Amazon, Google, everyone who is using a lot of power and needs a lot of electricity, especially in the AI race. But also, we added that business to our portfolio, which our board and our shareholders were happy to see because we were creating growth out of something that made sense, that was aligned with the mission. So we created, so sustainability was not just a mission, was not just something that we are going to spread across the company, which we did, but also becoming a business, right? So really aligning strategy and sustainability was important. This is why it was important to have the chief sustainability officer and the chief strategy officer to be the same person, and not two separate roles. So that was our motto, and it was recognized by the market. We created that business. We tripled the market cap of the company. Today, the market cap of Schneider, Raquel, is what, 160 billion euros, something like this. When I had that rough meeting with the board, well, hey, guys, it was barely 35 billion, 35, 40 billion. So that worked, and Schneider has been recognized over and over and over as the most sustainable corporation in the world. So how you measure this is very subjective. It depends on the number of awards and recognitions you get from Time Magazine or Fortune. But there's a more serious ranking which is run by Corporate Knights and is published every year around Davos, where they basically rank the sustainable practices of all the large corporations in the world. And Schneider Electric has been number one for the last, I don't know, 5 of the last 7 years or something like this, so systematically in the top 5. Recognizing that, of course, we had made the company more sustainable itself and delivering on this, but also created value for our shareholders through sustainability and decarbonization. Now, having said that, you never arrive, as Fernanda just said, but I wanted to do something else, and I wanted to say at that point in my career, I was okay, what do I do next? Where do I see an opportunity to do something to make that trick again, showing that decarbonization and climate and sustainability can create value for investors, right? So economic value. It's not just a gimmick that is, again, something that is all going to be about change management. And as soon as you keep you remove your eyes off the ball, the thing goes away. And I was looking at private equity, and my thesis was that Wall Street was probably not doing much, and therefore there was an opportunity to create a business in climate, especially in private equity. So now I'm a partner at KKR, and as Fabrizio said, one of the largest private equity firms in the world. And I joined KKR 3 years ago to create a business around climate investing. So what we do, we invest at scale in platforms that are going to decarbonize energy, transportation, industry, food system, data centers, and buildings. In investing, so we are decarbonizing the bus systems in London. For instance, we have 3,000 buses under management now, electric buses under management. Transitioning large buildings from gas to heat pumps in Germany. Microgrids and rooftop solars in shopping malls in Australia. Renewables in the US, very good business to be in. And I'm not joking. I'm not cynical. We can come back after this, and we are between friends to share a few anecdotes in my relationship with the Trump administration. So, and each time we do this, we invest 500 million, a billion, but basically the point we're making, for me, this is not different from what I was doing at Schneider. It's about economic value, right? We don't do sustainability just to save the planet. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable in an economic standpoint. That thing is going to have short legs. If the green stuff is more expensive, creates more frictions, the green stuff will go away. At the first volatility of the market, the first change of government in a country, it's not sustainable, actually. So it has to be a business, it has to create value. This is why for me at Schneider Electric, it was important to make of sustainability a P&L, a business. And here at KKR, I'm just doing the same. Why am I converting thousands of double-decker buses in London? Because it creates value for the investors, right? Because what I'm doing at KKR, I'm just raising money from sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, insurance companies, committing on two things. I will create a return that is going to be superior to the inflation and to what they would get in the bond markets. And second, that I'm going to decarbonize supply chains and businesses. But the return goes first. And if you don't have that notion of economic value, if you just do sustainability for the mission, which is important, because we all want to live in a better world and leave the world a better place as we found it. But if you just do this, that's not enough. You're going to get inflation, political backlash, and a lot of all the three drivers of antagonism to change that Fabrizio was mentioning. So for me, it was always important to make sure that there's economic value. So if we take the example of this bus system in the UK, it's anchored on a very simple thing. If you electrify a fleet of buses, yes, the bus may cost a bit more because electric vehicles are a bit more expensive still. But in the case of buses, they are frankly much more expensive. But in an electric vehicle, all the energy goes to the wheels. Nothing goes up in smokes or on thermal losses. There is no maintenance. There's basically any moving parts. Even if you're in a country like the UK where the energy is extremely expensive, the cost per mile in that case of energy is going to be a fraction of what you would pay with diesel. So it's cheaper over the long run, right? So if you take a fleet of those red double-deckers that you have in London and you electrify them, over 8 to 10 years, that's going to be much cheaper if they are electric than if you keep them with diesel. The problem is that you have to organize the business model properly. So we simply go to all those private companies that are running buses around London and we tell them, look, this is your bus, electric. You can buy it or finance the bus as you have always done, but don't count the battery. The battery is on us. We are going to finance the battery. And we are going to build in your depots all the charging infrastructure that you need to charge those buses. So we remove that friction from their plate. We tell them we just need three things. First, you guarantee that the buses are sitting in the depot at least 3 hours per night so that we can charge them. And we'll figure out the complexity of connecting to the grid and how much energy every bus needs and when and how because you cannot charge 200 buses at the same time. Those are big vehicles, they need a lot of energy, and even if it happens at night in the outskirts of London, there's never enough energy on the grid to do this. So you have to be smart about how you do this. So, but we say, okay, we take care of all that problem. We just ask you to have the buses in the depot every night at least 3 hours. You pay your own electricity, and I'll come back to the reason why I want this. And three, we sign a 15-year contract because actually they see those companies are private companies. They usually operate a line for 15 years. So we say, okay, we're going to electrify your fleet for the next 15 years. The result seen from the customer, in that case, from that company that operates buses in London, they have an electric fleet and they pay the same or a bit less even than if it was diesel. Why? Because it's more efficient. Through our business model, we just make it, we make that productivity that electrification brings, we convert it into a return, into an economic value. The only thing is that instead of paying X pounds per month per bus to Shell and BP in buying diesel, they pay us X pounds per month per bus in that rental of the charging infrastructure and the battery. So so all our businesses are like this, right? So you create economic value, and our point is that if you don't do this, your investors are not going to do it to like it, and they were going to jump from the fad of the month to the other. You see it today. There's a bit of a backlash around some pension funds and sovereign wealth funds who are criticizing the result of some private equity climate funds. So if you don't take the time to understand if what you're doing is going to have an economic value, regardless of subsidies and regardless of policies, because policies change in countries, I mean, at least in democracies, there's one thing you can be sure of, it's going to change. Economic value, creation of economic value has always been a driver when I was at Schneider Electric and even more now. Especially because you cannot, if you think about what's happening in sustainability, what has happened over the last 10 years. So again, 10 years ago to this date, this was COP21 in Paris. 1.5 degrees, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of engagement from all the governments on the planet, including the US and China. Very strong movement. We were all reading Larry Fink's letters where he was pushing for sustainability. We were all listening to Greta Thunberg. She was basically saying the same, just different perspective, but they were basically in the same business, the two of them. We were bundling E, S, and G. Today, very few people dare to do this anymore. At KKR, I scrapped the ESG acronym 2 years ago. But that was okay. So today it doesn't make sense. Why doesn't it make sense to put E, S, and G together? Because it's the best way to cheat. Oh, no, I'm not good on my emissions, but I'll do well on governance or social. No, you have to do well on E, on S, and G. It's not optional. It's not E, S, and G. And yes, when we did the first scorecard at Schneider Electric, yeah, we had everything in one. We had a laundry list of KPIs, and yes, we could do this. But that was okay 10 years ago. It's not okay anymore. And that's okay because the world changed. We all learn, right? So what I mean with this is we should have no regrets. And we should take stock of this, because if we really stay anchored on what were the principles of 10 years ago, well, that's not going to be a happy moment. Everybody has been criticizing, many people have been criticizing Bill Gates for the memo he published on decarbonization last week. He's a learning person like everyone. We all learn, we all evolve. So of course, this is why I especially like this place. As long as you don't renounce to your values and you know where your values are, that's okay. We're all here to learn, and I think it's okay to see the evolution of sustainability. Now, and of course, for me, it's a kind of self-serving, because today we're probably entering a phase of climate pragmatism. Sustainable abundance. Some people like to use this. The name of sustainable abundance is like, okay, sustainability is still important, but we're not going to sacrifice much here. We don't. We want to be able to continue growing. If you really want to use capitalism to make the world a better place, you will have to play by the rules of capitalism, which is basically growth. And this is kind of human nature. So sustainable abundance is probably the right term for what's coming, or climate pragmatism, where we have all learned what works, what doesn't work, and we start learning about what creates economic value, what may create economic value in the future, and if we have to be patient about it or not. Let's also not be misled by what governments are doing or saying. They have a very important role, because at the end, all that story, especially if you touch energy, it's about the energy independence and the energy sovereignty of countries, the supply chain sovereignty of countries. Right, so, and job creation. So it's normal. It's that governments are going to get involved, and it's normal that, especially in a democracy, when you have a change of government, they will have a different set of priorities. That's okay. And for us, we spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of time with governments, not to lobby or try to get something special, just to understand where they're going. In the US, I was spending a lot of time with the previous administration. I'm spending a lot of time with the current administration. I may or may not like what the previous guy or the current guys are doing. That's not the point. I just want to understand where this is going, how policy is being made. Or sometimes, one of the big conversations with the Trump administration these days is, no, we don't do policy. Just bring the deals. We'll figure out something that's good for the American people. Okay. What is important is that you know from the governments what are the rules of the game, right? So if that table is going to be square, that table is going to be round. Just tell me if it's square or round, and then I will organize the dinner around it. But now, if you change the table every 5 minutes, that's going to be a bit more complex. But this is why, and governments, we should not be surprised. And by the way, what Trump is saying in the US is very colorful. But I don't see much difference on the outcome between the US and Europe. Right? So if you just look at the details of what Europe published this week, we're going to the same place. Said in a much more educated manner, if you want, much more rational, much more European, but it's the same place. And it's okay. This is that learning journey where basically what the European Union is saying, like, didn't we go a bit too far in regulation? Didn't we go a bit too strong in the carbon tax and ETS system? Let's give a bit of reprieve to our supply chains, our industry. Otherwise, we are going to create inflation, or we're going to lose our industry altogether. So it's okay. Maybe we can tolerate a bit more of global warming. The thing that is, and it's important, is that there's no climate deniers, not even the Trump administration. When you talk to those guys, they say, no, climate change is real. And it's due to the usage of fossil fuels over the last 150 years. Where there's a bifurcation in the thinking is that, is it really an emergency? And how high does it rank on the list of priorities that we need to solve as societies? That's the difference. They are not climate deniers, and those are very prepared people, just with different opinion than from the previous guys. That's just the thing. So it's just about sitting, listening, and understanding how the game is going to be played. But frankly speaking, between what's happening in the US and what's happening in Germany, I don't see much difference, or in France. On climate policies, on sustainability, I don't see. And that's okay. We all learn as societies, and all the stakeholders, government has to be engaged. And they will always be. Right? Because again, it's about industry, supply chains, jobs, sovereignty of energy, and basically the geopolitical place of a country. So get ready for government to be involved and to have different opinions as they go. Especially during COVID, we discovered that supply chains were a thing. right? So, and everybody woke up like, oh, wow, and China is controlling the supply chain for solar panels and windmills and electrolyzers and batteries and cars, because cars are electric. And well, we should have known, because they said it with all the words. Right? Also, 10 years ago, Xi Jinping goes in front of the party congress and they enact the Made in China 2025, where they say with all the words, well, we will never catch the Germans at combustion engine cars. We'll catch them on EVs, and we'll create an auto industry through EVs. And a lot of people in Stuttgart and in Munich were laughing hard that day. They are not laughing anymore. So we could see that coming. We didn't want to understand or the change. We all woke up in the middle of COVID. Oh, shit, the Chinese are coming. We have created dependency on China. And then the response is not, oh, let's do like China. No, that's not. Every country is different. And China, if you think about it, they don't do it just to be. I mean, they are the really issue of social pressure, especially in Shanghai and Beijing. If you have traveled there around the Olympic Games or in the early 2010s, it was bad, especially in winter. So. And there was a lot of pressure from the educated classes in the cities to clean the air. But that's not really why they did it. Because China doesn't have natural resources. China is producing a bit of coal, and they import a lot. They don't have gas, they don't have oil. So electrifying and developing renewables and creating a whole electrostate was a geostrategic move. On top of this, they use their mighty supply chain and the size of their countries and economies of scale and government support to control the supply chains. But that's really was the thing, to create, now, at the same time, the US became the largest producer of oil and gas, right? The US has become that barbell economy. So think about it. The US is producing more oil than Saudi and Russia combined. And more gas than Saudi, Qatar, UAE, Russia, Australia combined. Right? So not just a bit more, just like by a mile. So the US is that sort of very sophisticated Saudi Arabia, if you will, where you have on one hand that barbell economy with very strong commodity business, oil and gas in that case, and AI and the almighty tech sector, and on top of this, the deepest financial market system. So, but it's a completely different thing. So this is why sometimes I had many conversations with people, with European renewables developers. Say, oh yeah, we'll go to the US because they are late in the deployment of renewables. Well, be careful what you wish. In the US, the largest producer of gas, you have gas everywhere, and it's cheap. You're going to produce gas-powered electricity at $25, $30 a megawatt hour. Don't bring offshore wind. That's going to cost you $120 a megawatt hour. So offshore wind is good in the North Sea or in places like Germany or south of Australia, parts of Japan, where there's no option for natural resources. So offshore wind is extremely expensive. So people who come with the idea that, oh no, we develop offshore wind because the Americans are dumb and late. Actually, this is why I call sometimes a bit the European arrogance. So if you think about it, all the people doing this are Europeans. Take time to understand what's the situation of the country you're playing with, because the starting point in sustainability and in energy is going to be different. And you have to understand the Americans. That it's not that they are today. So in the US, if you want to thrive in renewables, do solar. It's even cheaper than gas, and there's space. Nobody cares. Today, in my fund, we have a solar and battery developer that operates in Nevada, California, and Arizona. We're making a killing. It's the best. And people sometimes, oh, but Trump and no. So of course you have to understand how the game is being played. This is why I'm spending time with those guys, trying to. But again, it's back to the economic value and to the fundamentals of things. So I would never do offshore wind on the east coast of the US, but I'm very happy to do solar and batteries on the west coast. The economic value of all this. I'll leave it here. Questions? Yes.
Electrifying buses in UK and London is like so economically efficient. Why they were not doing it by themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because of the friction. Because usually what the people, the operators, they go, oh wow, that bus is going to cost 20% more. And where do I charge it now? Oh, I need to find a charger in the street. So we provide the service. So we're just a big, sophisticated electrical contractor. We say, okay, we just remove all those frictions from the table. We'll do it for you. Because those people are bus operators. Actually, and we are doing this now in Germany, in Australia, in the US with school buses, in Canada. And we like this so much that we just acquired another company, which is, so it's a different play. It's a company called Dawson, also in the UK. Dawson is the largest commercial vehicle leasing company. So that's the company that leases vans and buses and trucks to Amazon, Ocado, Tesco, the National Health Service, half of the sweeping and garbage equipment that cities are rented from that company called Dawson. It's 32,000 vehicles. 95% of those are diesel. And for me, this is an opportunity. If that company, if we had not acquired that company, well, they would stay with that 95% diesel, maybe under the pressure of low emission zones in some British cities and the sustainability programs of their customers. They may have electrified a bit of delivery vans and things, but precisely because there's an economic value, I know that as an investor, I'm going to create an additional revenue by electrifying. The company by itself would not do it, but because we have the recipe and we know how to transform the productivity that electrification brings into an economic value, we are applying it to accelerate electrification, but always creating value. Now, it's not obvious. That company would not do it otherwise, I guess. They wanted to do it, but it's a change of business model. Because if that company, Dawson, is basically leasing vehicles to those companies, now they're going to lease vehicles and charging infrastructure in the depots and the warehouses of those customers. So it's a change of business model that was not obvious. And that they can only perform with patient capital, with someone who is motivated to do it, who sees the value creation, and would let them do it over 5 to 7 years. Right? So this is also important, and one of my learnings that there are things you can do in a private setting. Private capital is more patient by definition than public capital. In public capital, you have to deliver results every quarter. So we did it at Schneider. The business Raquel is running is a big one. So we did it. Sometimes investors were looking at us like, "Oh, really? Are you doing this?" We were hiding the business a bit at the beginning, and now, we are probably advertising it. But if you have patient capital, these type of transformations are a bit easier. Yes.
Hi. Yeah, I think it's working. I'm Maria Raure, by the way, Director of Investments at an impact fund. Mm-hmm. I was actually going to ask about patient capital, how important that is for sustainability, right? For products that try to drive that change. What is, from your perspective, the willingness of the private sector on providing that type of patient capital that is needed? And in your definition, you mentioned 15 years for the bus project. I kept that in mind. So what is the spectrum of this patient capital for projects as such to work? And is there enough out there, enough appetite with the current environment we're living?
So one thing before I answer the question, of course you understand that well, but just to make sure that we're on the same page, right? So when you create a business, you have a startup, you're going to go to venture capital funds, right? So people who are ready to take a lot of risk on you, or not even funds. Sometimes you have to find friends and family and someone or family who is ready to trust you. Literally, so that's very risky because the mortality rate of startups in the world is something like 98%, right? So it's super risky. So any investor that gives you money as a startup knows that there's 98% chance that you're not going to make it. Now the 2% who make it, well, that's the one who create a ton of value. But as the company grows and the risk goes away, you have to make sure that the cost of capital decreases, right? Because literally, a venture capital investor, what they will do is, let's assume that they have 100 million to invest. They will spread their bets across probably 100 companies, right? So they won't place 3 bets of 20 million. That would be very dangerous because 98% of mortality. They will invest 1 million in 100 companies. And 2 or 5 will be successful, all the others will die. So they lose, let's say 95 million, but the last 5 companies are going to return at least 300 or 400 million. So they pay the fund. So they put 100 million in, they get 3 or so. But those companies, they've put 1 million in, and they return, let's say each of them 50. So it's in the business of making 15 times your money. That's a cost of capital of 85%, right? So if you go to the bank, you say, I would need a loan. Can I have a loan? Can I have 55% interest rate? You don't take the loan. But as the company grows, you have to make sure it changes from one profile of private investor to the other, and then you decrease that cost of capital until you get to basically a cost of capital that is a bit more than inflation or the interest rate in that country, right? So, and this is how private markets are efficient. So, and what I'm doing, I'm just a guy in the middle. I'm picking up the startup. So that company that electrifies buses in London was a startup created a bit more than 10 years ago by venture capitalists, which gave them money at a very, with taking that risk. But when we picked it up, it was already 50 million pounds EBITDA, growing. They just needed capital to grow. So and eventually, and this is the reason why I'm putting that 15-year contract on them is on the customers. My cost of capital is still high, still in the 20% plus. As the company grows, it's not reasonable to impose that type of capital on them. So you have to decrease that capital. And eventually that company is going to be an infrastructure owned by a big infrastructure fund or go public one day, but once at a very low cost of capital. So each time you go from VC to growth equity to early infrastructure to mature, more core infrastructure, you decrease the cost of capital, but each step is 5-7 years. And we are patient capital by definition, right? I don't care if the company doesn't make a profit for the first 3 years. I own it. I just care about the price at which I'm going to buy it and the price at which I'm going to sell it. And of course, if it better be profitable when I sell it, because the next guy is otherwise not going to recognize the value. But so this is what patient capital is. In public markets, it's much more difficult. So this is why today, if you hear all of us, KKR, Apollo, Blackstone saying the same, we are patient capital. Public markets are becoming more and more volatile. They are not patient capital. The proof of it is look at what has happened in oil and gas. Shell and BP had very ambitious plans to decarbonize their operations and to be champions in the energy transition. I don't judge if those were the right strategies or not. There are a few things, as a former strategist of a Fortune 500, There are a few things I would have done different. But anyway, basically, because public equity markets are not designed to sustain transformation, they say, no, with my money as a shareholder, I'm not going to finance your transformation to hydrogen, to wind, and you have no idea what wind is about. And by the way, if you drill a hole somewhere in the desert in the Middle East, with all the risk and that thing, you're going to return 25% of return over capital employed. Wind, if you're lucky, you're going to compete with Iberdrola and other guys who are happy with 7%. So it's a worse investment for me as a shareholder, and you're stepping into a business that you don't know. So the shareholders are basically gently telling Shell and BP and others to go back to their roots. Who is different here? There's a big example here in Spain, Mueve, Cepsa. The CEO of Cepsa, former Shell guy, actually that was the guy who was running the climate business at Shell, Martin Westerlaar. And you talk to Martin said, no, I have time. He doesn't have that pressure in any. Why? Because he's owned by private investors. His two shareholders are Carlyle and Mubadala. So they are patient capital. They want Mueve to decarbonize. And they don't care if that impacts the earnings for the next 2 or 3 quarters. This is why there is only one climate company that has gone public and been successful in the process. It's Tesla. And Elon Musk he tried several times. Back in 2018, if you remember, he tried to take it back private because he realized it was a mistake. So it's very difficult to operate this type of transformation in the stock market. Or you have to do it together with another business, like we did at Schneider Electric. So this is why if your business is mostly about decarbonization, you better do this in a private setting. This is where you will find private patient capital. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Marianna Molino from Kearney.
It's flashing.
I wanted to ask your perspective on... No, nothing. So I wanted to ask your perspective on waste, because especially on electronic waste, there's a lot of value in it. And if it's the barrier is more like the business model, or what do you think it is? And then second, also, as waste, you can generate value not only for the company, but mainly also for the society, so that there is economic value for the government itself. How would you set up deals, and also what are the potential tools that you think are successful?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is a topic I'm spending more and more time on. How you can build circular supply chain, circular economy supply chain, but where the recycled product is cheaper than the original product. So you start seeing this happening in textile, where you can recycle polyester and have your recycled polyester being cheaper than the original one. So you don't need to do virgin polyester made out of fossil fuels. Nylon works very well. You collect plastics, and then you with a chemical process, as long as the price of oil is not too cheap, your recycled nylon is going to be cheaper than the original. So that's it. You have a circular economy thing, and then the green stuff is cheaper. Why bother? So there's a number of supply chains where you see that happening, especially around textile and plastics. It starts to be interesting. On chips, there's an application we are spending a lot of time on now, which is magnets, rare earth, and critical minerals. You've read the news. China controls 95% of that, of the blending and processing of rare earth. Right? So these rare earths are not rare; they're everywhere on the planet. Just that the Chinese have been controlling the supply chain. And actually, if you look at how they do it, it's not super sustainable. They use a lot of solvent, very aggressive solvents, and other processes which are not good for the environment. But you start seeing companies in Europe and in the US which come with sustainable practices, where instead of using solvent, they would use chromatography and or the sustainable pyrolysis to recycle chips, recycle the electric motors, the ones you have in your phone to make it vibrate, or electric motors coming from cars or from washing machines. Those are full of magnets. So if you have a process that can take all those metals from chips and from electric motors and separate the metals back and send them back into the supply chain, that's it. So not only you reduce the exposure and the dependency on China, but also you create a virtuous circle here. And what is good, because if you move from the good in a metal economy, where everything is a bit more electrified, so metals, if you use them in a battery or in a magnet, they lose efficiency over time, but they don't burn up in smoke. They don't become emissions, and then you can recycle them. So the metal economy is much more efficient. In an ideal world, in a lithium or copper supply chain or rare supply chain, you should be able to have a full circular economy system where of course you will always lose a bit in those transformations, so you top it off, but you don't have to deplete all the resources of the planet, all the mines, and so this is what makes it attractive. It's still a bit early to do this, but especially with all the noise around rare earths and critical minerals these days, and the negotiation between China and the US and Europe, we're spending a lot of time on this. But always trying to find the economic value, of course. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Igor Shishlov from IESE Paris and Perspectives Climate Group. My question is about measurement of your climate impact.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you're taking money from institutional investors. They require returns, but also impact.
Yeah.
So how exactly do you measure that impact? Is it about emission reductions or some kind of transformational impact? And are you aiming at having your full portfolio Paris aligned, basically?
Yes. So to the last question, yes. Everything we do at KKR, so each fund we launch, climate fund or infrastructure fund or real estate or private, everything has to be Paris aligned. So it's minimum Article 8. That's one. But for the climate fund, precisely for the impact, we said, okay, it's going to be returns first. Because if we start giving the impression to our investors that, yeah, we can have two objectives, a carbon objective, carbon abatement objective, and a returns objective, that's going to go against our philosophy of value creation through decarbonization. Because, no, but the return is not great, but we have decarbonized. And that's not sustainable. I've decarbonized, but yeah, it's a shitty return. That's not. So we said, no, returns first. Now, once you say that, you have to make sure you're not doing greenwashing, right? So we have put in place a system that basically, if someone in the team comes, you have a great business, look, we're going to make $1 gazillion on this. Yeah. Have you passed the thresholds on climate? If the answer is no, I don't care about the return. And so we just kill it. So that's the way we work. Returns first, and then meeting climate thresholds. The three thresholds. The first one, we call it relevant. We only want to play in industries which have meaningful footprints. So that's energy, industry, transportation, data centers, food, and buildings. If someone comes, I have the best plan to decarbonize a bank or consulting company, yeah, that's interesting, but that's not relevant. So only in sectors with very high, and mostly in developed economies. Because the Global South is another thing. It's more about leapfrogging and not creating, but the emissions are mostly in developed economies, and China is a developed economy. So it's developed economies and Indo sectors. Second, significant. You have to make sure that you're decarbonizing, you're solving for the scope 3 of someone in that supply chain. Example, if someone comes, oh, we're going to invest in a company that is a supplier to Tesla, and Tesla is all EV, so it is good. Well, it depends. If you're supplying door handles and wipers to Tesla, that's not relevant. That's not significant. If you're supplying batteries or materials for the batteries, yes, now we're talking. So that's the second test, to make sure that you don't fool yourself by saying, oh, I'm in that industry and I'm doing... and then the third thing, we measure the emissions. So we have not put a target on the fund because we're investing in agriculture, in buses, in heat pumps, in rooftop solar, it's apple and oranges. So the intensity, the carbon abatement per dollar invested is completely different. So if I had put a target to the team, I'm like, we want to 1 megaton of CO2, I would have got probably the best, today the best CO2 abatement per dollar invested is green steel. I would have got just green steel. But then that's a risk for my investors. Oh yeah, I have a fund, but half of it is green steel investments. Well, that's not a smart investment strategy. So we measure it. For each time we do an investment, we have a full climate due diligence, climate and sustainability due diligence stream. And this is where we say, okay, that we should be able to abate that many emissions during the ownership period, the 5-7 years we are going to own that company. And we report this to our investors because our investors want to see this. Say, hey, show me how much you're abating because I'm giving you my money. Yes, you do it for the return, but show me that you're not greenwashing. So we have to prove this and we report this. And of course, we cannot mark our own homework. So all this is done with external suppliers, with consultants and with external parties. So it's a relatively complex system, but I cannot mark my own homework. So, yeah, no, it's a great decarbonization play. And no, I have to show that someone else is saying that. Yes.
We have, one question.
more.
Two more.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Follow-up question regarding rhetorical plan. No.
Just speak up and I'll try to repeat it.
Just a follow-up question regarding your comment on recycling
Yes.
chips and getting the metals back. I wonder, so to the extent that you want to reuse these metals into new production, but that production is done in a different place. So if if you recycle lithium in Europe, but then all of the batteries are produced in China, is your fund reflecting on the reshoring of this manufacturing capability so that the circular economy makes sense and manufacturing is done where consumption happens?
Yeah, we look for the economic value all the time. So that's the great example. You say, yeah, if I recycle in Europe, if I recycle the metals in Europe, I end up making batteries in China. The battery, well, first I'm transporting things. I'm creating a carbon footprint. That's probably not necessary. And second, the energy mix in China is still relatively dirty. And making batteries is very energy intensive. So I'm going to make it worse. So it only makes sense if the supply chains are relatively local. And depending on the product, but recycling metals, except if you recycle magnets for the defense industry, which is a bit more global, but that's not sustainability anymore. Usually those supply chains are very local. That would be regional, at European or North American level. But having things traveling is, we look at the emissions and again, because most of those processes are energy intensive, you have to understand what's the energy mix, the electricity mix in the back. So we look at this. And usually these type of things don't travel well. The thing that travels the worst is hydrogen. So we are building a hydrogen platform in Spain. Because hydrogen has a role, and why we chose Spain, because Spain has together with Norway and Sweden, the cheapest electricity price in Europe. So for renewables. So the only way you can really make hydrogen economically is in Spain. But you cannot transport hydrogen. Forget, I'm going to send hydrogen from Spain to Germany. No, you're going to lose money. So again, it's a mix of economic value and carbon footprint. And usually these type of things don't travel too well.
Yes, thank you. Okay. you underline how important is that sustainability has to create return for investors. You took as a positive example the bus electrification project in London. What about the automotive industry? Right now, if you look at automotive industry movements and even the declaration of their leaders, it seems that sustainability and growth are in contrast. Do you believe it's a real problem? Maybe it's a factor of other matter, like a lack of strategy, friction, or whatever? Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so I think again, I feel for them because it's tough to be in the public market, right? If they had private owners, if the big auto companies were not on the stock market and had more patient shareholders, it may be different. And also today, because what happened is that the Chinese are in electrification, are flying. I think the best example is Porsche, right? So there's the Xiaomi G7, which is a kind of a better version of the Porsche Taycan. So Porsche is left in the dust. So if you're Porsche, you're selling high-performing cars, luxury product, and you have that bloody mobile phone maker in China making a product that is better than you. So it's a big shock. Now, they were told 10 years ago by the Chinese government, we're going to do it. They didn't believe it. They were laughing. Now they are not laughing. So my point is that sometimes they're looking a bit for excuses. Now, this year I've had two very encouraging conversations. One with the CEO of Mercedes a couple of weeks ago, and one with the CEO of Ford. The first one, the CEO of Ford, is not saying it. Actually, I think they are announcing this week that they may dismantle the F-150 Lightning, the electric version, but actually is working on a full electric platform of trucks and things. So they say what their investors want to hear, but they're not staying quiet. They're not staying put. Mercedes, kind of same thing. You hear that language, oh no, sustainability doesn't pay, I'm going back to hybrid, I'm going back to... They all understand that the only sector that is growing is electrification, that they cannot miss that train. Now they are less up and to the right, and let's put everything on electrification than a few years ago, yes, because they have to, otherwise their shareholders are going to crush them. So I feel for them. The writing was on the wall, the Chinese told them, so they don't really have an excuse for that, but I think they are doing a great job. And again, those two conversations, both with the CEO of Ford and the CEO of Mercedes this year, were quite encouraging. So they understand the problem. One thing is what they say to the media and to the press and to the shareholders, and the other thing is what they are doing and how they are preparing the future. So now the other thing is how dependent is the German economy on the auto industry? Maybe a bit too much, but that's another debate. And Germany has many other assets that they could use to make their economy a bit more balanced, and they will do it.
Thank you so much,
Good.
Emmanuel.
Thank you.